Hello, this will be the continuation of Field Trips Always End Terribly, written by Itslivybear on AO3. This will be Chapter 4, Uh-oh, Stinky. Summary. It's been a week and Midoriya is starting to get comfortable. Of course, then Sensei ruins that by wanting to talk to him. God damn it. The first meeting of the heroes involved in his rescue case occurs, and things get heated. The first week of captivity was pretty normal, all things considered. Eat, play video games, practice basic hygiene, eat another time or two, go to bed, repeat, with some variation of timing and games played. Izuku tried to keep track of the days, but they started to blend together, and he really was almost calm. Still tense, of course, because these were villains who had kidnapped him. He wasn't about to forget, but they had been nothing but nice to him. For the first time in forever, someone was actually being somewhat friendly to him. Hell, Tomura was seen wearing gloves fairly often now, marveling at being able to hold things completely. Despite all that, Izuku couldn't help but be nervous when the schedule changed. Izuku, Sensei wants to see you today. He swallowed, looking at Kurogiri, the one who had spoken, as the mist man polished the glass. Oh, why? Tomura spoke up instead, smiling. Sensei's really smart. He's gonna help you understand why heroes are shit. Oh, oh no. His mind flashed in phantom pain. Pain it had been in not a week ago, and he blanched. Honestly, if he saw Sensei again in the next year, it would be too soon. That man was powerful and dangerous. The older boy saw his fear, patting him on the head in a way that was probably supposed to be comforting. Don't worry, Izu. Sensei won't hurt you. He'll help you, just like he helped me. That's what I'm afraid of. He couldn't help but think with a dry swallow. Tomura had been quick to articulate how Sensei had saved him when no heroes or civilians spared him another glance. He would spout his hatred for heroes at every opportunity, often using it as a way to remind Izuku that no one had come for him and that it would be better to just be Tomura's party member. The way he said it almost rang in Izuku's mind like a friend. But even that wasn't enough to draw him in. He had friends, he told himself. He did, waiting for him back at UA. Even if no one had come for him yet, and it had been at least a week. Kurogiri opened a portal for him, indicating that he should step through, and his fingers fiddled with the hem of his shirt before he forced himself to walk. The mist was cool on his skin, but it had nothing on the chill that washed over him when he felt the overbearing presence of Sensei.
Ah, Izuku, how nice of you to join me. It's been a while.
He nodded, not being able to bring himself to speak.
Tell me, how have you enjoyed your time here?
Oh, not something he could answer without speaking. He cleared his throat. It's been good? Tomura is nice, and Kurogiri is very polite and a good cook.
You sound as if you were asking a question.
Crap. No, it's good. He tried to be firm, voice still stuttering.
How wonderful. Tomura didn't grow up with many other people, so I feared he would be socially awkward. Good to hear my protege is doing so well. Now,
The scarred man shifted in his seat, looking more like he was lounging.
come sit beside me. I have a lesson I would like to impart on you.
Izuku gulped, twisting the hem of his shirt harshly and walking over on shaking legs. There was indeed a chair next to the villain, far closer than he would have liked it to be, but he had no choice but to sit down, not entirely sure what the man would do if he disobeyed.
Very good. Has Tomura told you anything of his past?
A little. He swallowed, forcing himself to not turn up in question.
I'm going to tell you a story, Izuku.
He nodded hesitantly, not sure if that statement warranted a response or not, but it seemed to please the man.
Once there were two brothers. One was very sick, and his older brother did anything he could to protect him. Powers had just started to manifest, and the older brother was very strong, while the younger brother had no power at all. In an effort to protect his brother, the elder built up an army of people loyal to him, so they could keep each other safe. But the younger brother was angry. He didn't agree with his older brother taking power if it was going to be at the cost of human life, even if it was going to be better for everyone, including him. In an effort to make his brother see reason that this was all for him, the older brother gifted the power to the younger, but he used it to turn against his brother, bringing down his entire empire. He labeled his brother as a villain for fighting against the corrupt government, and finally, the elder had to kill his dear younger brother. Sadly, his brother had found a successor to pass his power and his hatred to, and the elder brother was forced to fight his brother's legacy.
There was a silence before Izuku managed to squeak out the question. He could transfer his power? Like you?
As it turns out, my younger brother did indeed have a power, one that would have gone unnoticed had I not gifted him another. He had the power to pass down quirks to other people using his DNA, and that's what he did, and his line of fools have done for 8 generations.
Why not just take it back? The man sighed as if this was a major point of frustration for him.
The nature of the quirks makes it so that it can only be given willingly, instead of forcibly taken. Trust me, I have tried, seeking to end my foolish brother's legacy and stop it from sending foolish heroes to their death.
On the word heroes, a shock of pain burst through him that made him flinch, and it was then that he noticed that at some point during the story, Sensei had placed a hand on his shoulder. What did you do? Choosing to misinterpret the question, he continued.
I did what I had to do. I tried reasoning with them, of course. I just wanted that last piece of my brother back, after all. I had originally fought against quirk discrimination, in those times. It was those with power that were shunned and killed instead of how it is today. You would know a bit about that, though, I suppose.
You tried to reason with the heroes? He bit his lip as another shot of pain arced through him at the word.
Of course, they are all foolish children, running to their deaths in the name of fame, money, and a false sense of justice.
It's not false, he panicked internally, knowing arguing with the supervillain who currently had a hand on you was not a great idea, but pressed on. All Might, and his words were cut off as he yelped, nearly falling over at the shock that went through him.
Ah, yes, him, the eighth of my brother's legacy and the most foolhardy. He came at me with no plan, no backup, nothing, and nearly died for his trouble. Not to mention how hypocritical he was in handling you.
Right, he had looked at Izuku's memories. Still, hypocritical? Sensei hummed.
Indeed, before he was past the quirk, he himself was quirkless.
Izuku froze, brain trying to comprehend what he just said. All Might was. He clutched his head, wincing.
Ah, I wouldn't recommend thinking about him or any heroes for that matter.
The shock was far less, but was still there.
Since you have a trauma associated with them. I mean, they never believed in you, after all.
He made it sound like this was a natural reaction, but Izuku wasn't stupid. This was the work of a quirk, and he was not about to fall into that trap. Aizawa-sensei believed in me.
Ah, yes, Eraserhead. Tell me, Izuku, where is he?
He couldn't help it, as his eyes stung with tears, both from the pain and the painful reminder that he had been here for at least a week and had heard no news, nothing. Tomura let him turn on the news, after all, to see the goings on and happenings of the world, probably also to reinforce how people had stopped caring about him. As he thought of Tomura, a warm feeling of peace overcame him, and the pain he stopped. His shoulders slumped in defeat, knowing that at least to some degree, Sensei was right.
Well, that's all I wanted to talk to you about today. Go spend more time with Tomura. He seems much happier now that you're here.
Izuku ran out as fast as he could without seeming rude, showing back up in the bar where Tomura was waiting.
Hey, Rogue, how did it go?
It went. He winced at how blunt he was, but the older boy just laughed.
Come on, we need to get through that puzzle level, remember?
He nodded, following Tomura back through the halls to his room when the building shook. The boy scoffed, scratching his neck in irritation as he turned on the news. There was a fight about 2 blocks away. The fact that they could feel the tremors from here meant it was big.
Shitty heroes. Holy shit, Izu, are you okay?
The combination of hearing the word heroes and seeing All Might show up on the screen proved too much for whatever the hell Sensei had done now, and he sank to his knees, wrapping his arm around his body as he fought for air. He managed to glance up into startled and somewhat concerned red eyes and murmured out a Tomra before the pain started to ease, being replaced with warmth, just like the last time he had thought of the villain boy. He realized what Sensei had done to him now. Shit. He was being conditioned. Heroes and All Might were bad, villains and Tomura were good. He needed to get out of here, and fast. Aizawa slouched in his chair in the meeting room as the heroes they had managed to score up started to trickle in. The meeting wouldn't start for another 5 minutes, but the underground heroes, of which this group would be mostly comprised, were known for being early. Night Eye, a borderline underground hero, was apparently a big fan of punctuality and had been here a solid 10 minutes early. He glanced at Hisashi, on board for the case and willing to speak, since Aizawa didn't do people well. Soon, everyone was settled in. It was an odd bunch. Miss Joke, the Smile Hero, Sir Night Eye, the Foresight Hero and former sidekick of the number one, Edgeshot, the Ninja Hero, Tiger, Ragdoll, Mendeley, and Pixie Bob of the Wild Wild Pussycats, Gang Orca, the Killer Whale Hero, then, of course, Eraserhead, Present Mike, and the rest of the teachers and staff of UA. Only he and Hisashi were here for this meeting, but everyone was aware of how the staff was taking it on as a whole, since it was one of their kids that had been taken. Welcome, listeners! Down to business. Midoriya Izuku, first-year hero student, was kidnapped 8 days ago by the group that identified themselves as the League of Villains. The knowledge we have is limited, but between us and the police force, we should be able to find them. Hisashi then gave them a recap of the events that had happened at the USJ, putting blurry and faraway pictures of both Shigaraki Tomura and Kurogiri on a screen behind him. Questions! Night Eye was the first to speak. What of this Nomu creature?
The Nomu was, as we discovered after testing, a genetically modified person with at least 3 quirks: regeneration, shock absorption, and a body enhancement quirk.
Yellow eyes narrowed. And this sensei person that Shigaraki mentioned, do we have any more data on him? Aizawa took the moment to speak up. I was almost delirious at that point, but he did say something about his sensei being able to give Midoriya a quirk. He was likely the one behind the Nomu, and that is why we need to find Midoriya quickly, so he isn't made into one of those things. Night Eye suddenly stood up. Give quirks? He hissed. Why didn't you lead with that? Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Again, I wasn't certain if I heard it correctly. I had just had my head bashed in.
Joke snorted once, taking in his form, still covered in bandages. Yeah, we can tell.
Because that, coupled with the Nomu, means we're dealing with something much, much worse than just your run of the mill villains.
Well, Mandalay interjected, trying to stave off a fight, you seem to know what it is. We would all benefit from more knowledge of what we're dealing with.
Night Eye just shook his head. We're in over our heads. If I'm right, not even All Might could take him down, and trust me, he tried. All the more reason to not leave Midoriya with him.
You don't understand, the tall, lanky man snarled. If this is all for one. He cut himself off and took a breath to calm himself. If that man has him, there is nothing we can do. Surprisingly, it was Hisashi who exploded. So you just want to leave a kid with a villain you're too scared to even talk about?
All for one, Night Eye snapped, is a 200-year-old supervillain with the ability to take and give quirks. Yes, I think we shouldn't risk hero society as a whole for one boy.
He cut himself off, but Aizawa had heard the start of the consonant forming in his throat.
Oh, so because he's quirkless he's not worth saving? What happened to being a hero?
Pixie Bob stood up and clapped her hands together, drawing the attention away from the tension. You both have points, Aizawa. We are heroes and need to act like it. Not helping someone in need is antithetical to who we are. There were murmurs of agreement. But Night Eye is also right. This guy sounds like bad news, and we need a killer plan and some kick-ass heroes to make it work. But first, we need to find the kid. Ragdoll stood up next, paw-covered hand raised in a cheer. Yeah, let the pussycats find the kitten. Half of search and rescue is search, after all. She giggled at her own joke, bringing a smile out of her team members, Joke and Hisashi. Night Eye considered for a moment before sitting down with a defeated sigh.
Fine. We will need to be careful, however. If All for One catches wind of us, he is just as likely to kill the boy as he is to move entirely, and that is not a risk we can afford to take.
Aizawa huffed. Time to get started and find his kid. And there we go. That was Chapter 4 of Field Trips Always End Terribly by Itslivybear on AO3. I will again tell everyone to go leave kudos to the original work. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. Anyways, I hope everyone have a good night, and I will see you in Chapter 5.